Welcome to the appendix, where we read the primary sources of the past so the present can be better understood. Today's primary source, Objection to the Federal Constitution, letter of Robert Yates and John Lansing to the Governor of New York, 1787, as found in Debates in the Several State Conventions and the Adoption of the Federal Constitution, edited by J. Elliott, Volume 1, page 480. Yates and Lansing, delegates to the Federal Convention from New York, refused to sign the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton alone signed from New York State. Opposition to the new Constitution in New York was intense, and ratification was secured only after 9 other states had already ratified. We beg leave, briefly, to state some cogent reasons which, among others, influenced us to decide against a consolidation of the states. They are reducible into 2 heads. First, the limited and well-defined powers under which we acted and which could not, on any possible construction, embrace an idea of such magnitude as to assent to a general constitution in subversion of that of the states. Second, a conviction of the impracticability of establishing a general government, pervading every part of the United States and extending essential benefits to all. Our powers were explicit and confined to the sole and express purpose of revisiting the Articles of Confederation and reporting such alterations and provisions therein, and should render the federal constitution adequate to the exigencies of government and the preservation of the Union. From these expressions, we were led to believe that a system of consolidated government could not, in the remotest degree, have been in contemplation of the legislature of this state, for that so important a trust as the adopting measures which tended to deprive the state governments of its most essential rights of sovereignty, and to place it in a dependent situation, could not have been confided by implication, and the circumstances that the acts of the convention were to receive a state approbation in the last resort, forcibly corroborated the opinion that our powers could not involve the subversion of the Constitution which, being immediately derived from the people, could only be abolished by their expressed consent, and not by a legislature possessing authority vested in them for its preservation. Nor could we suppose that, if it had been in the intention of the legislature to abrogate the existing confederation, they would, in such pointed terms, have directed the attention of their delegates to the revision and amendment of it, in total exclusion of every other idea. Reasoning in this manner, we were of the opinion that the leading feature of every amendment ought to be the preservation of the individual states in their uncontrolled constitutional rights, and that, in reserving these, a mode might have been devised of granting to the Confederacy the moneys arising from a general system of revenue, the power of regulating commerce, and enforcing the observance of foreign treaties and other necessary matters of less moment. Exclusive of our objections originating from the want of power, we entertained an opinion that a general government, however guarded by declarations of rights or cautionary provisions, must unavoidably, in a short time, be productive of the destruction of the civil liberty of such citizens who could be effectually coerced by it, by reason of the extensive territory of the United States, the dispersed situation of its inhabitants, and the insuperable difficulty of controlling or counteracting the views of a set of men, however unconstitutional and oppressive their acts might be, possessed of all the powers of government, and who, from their remoteness from their constituents and necessary permanency of office, could not be supposed to be uniformly actuated by an attention to their welfare and happiness, that however wise and energetic the principles of the general government might be, the extremities of the United States could not be kept in due submission and obedience to its laws at the distance of many hundred miles from the seat of government, that if the general legislature was composed of so numerous a body of men as to represent the interest of all the inhabitants of the United States in the usual and true ideas of representation, the expense of supporting it would become intolerably burdensome, and that if a few only were vested with the power of legislation, the interest of a great majority of these inhabitants of the United States must necessarily be unknown, or, if known, even in the first stages of the operations of the new government, unattended to. These reasons were, in our opinion, conclusive against any system of consolidated government to that recommended by the convention. We suppose most of them very forcibly apply. Thank you for joining us for our primary source today on the appendix. We will see you in the stacks.